We've heard a lot about how additional casinos or additional gaming facilities might generate more revenue and or protect the loss of revenue. And so sort of in the balance sheet ledger, if you will, if we expand, there'll be more money. And there really hasn't been, Madam Speaker, I believe, a discussion of what costs there may be. And I want to focus specifically on one part of costs that are intangible, but they have a very tangible impact, and those are social costs. Madam Speaker, my comments are based on personal experience. Sadly, a member of my family, who I care about very deeply, has been a gambling addict for the last 30 years. And our family has had to live with that. And so my comments are going to be based on that experience and also on facts that are on the department's website. One of the things that we have to understand when someone becomes an addict, and Madam Speaker, supply does create demand, I'm afraid, for addiction. As a matter of fact, the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services says in the site that I was referring to, rates of problem gambling, and I'm quoting directly, are twice as high among persons who live within 50 miles of a casino relative to those who do not. And sadly, where it is more accessible, it creates a problem. What kind of problems are created from gambling addiction? Well, I think, as we know, those who become an addict or have a problem with gambling have other issues. They may have emotional issues. They may have anxiety or depression issues. There may be other forms of addictions that are present. But the fact is that for a number of individuals, when they go and gamble, it does something for them. It meets a need. And unfortunately, it ends up in a destructive way. But whether they feel like their anxiety has been addressed or their depression's been addressed, that's why they have these types of issues. Here in Connecticut, 66,867 adults are classified as having a gambling disorder. That's 2.4% of all Connecticut adults that have this issue. And then it says another 4%, or roughly 109,615, are currently at risk for developing serious gambling problems. And as I pointed out earlier, in the case of gambling, supply creates its own demand. And where there is more supply, there will be more demand, and there will be more gambling types of issues. 60% of gambling addicts will commit crimes. 20% will commit or attempt to commit suicide. 63% are alcoholics. 20% have filed for bankruptcy. 50% abuse a spouse or abuse their children. 20% are homeless. 50% will divorce. The average gambling debt is between $60,000 and $110,000. Madam Speaker, as we know, as we go through our budget, our state budget, and we look at the social services part of our budget, a lot of these social costs end up in our budget. And the point that I want to make, Madam Speaker, is that when we make a calculation as to how much revenue we may get from an additional location or an additional 2 or 3 locations, we also need to look at what the social costs are going to be and the real dollar impact that they're going to have and how it's going to affect us on the liability side of things. And Madam Speaker, I sincerely believe that if we expand gambling here, the number of individuals who are impacted will be severely impacted. Greater access to popular types of gambling, i.e. slot machines or Keno, is likely to increase the proportion of the population who gamble and develop problems, especially in high-risk, heavy social service utilizing groups. The second point they make is that increases in gambling problems will require greater need for social services in Connecticut, including police to assist with gambling-related crimes and violence, economic support for those experiencing gambling-related divorce, job loss, and bankruptcy, and treatment for medical and psychiatric problems associated with gambling problems. And finally, Madam Speaker, they make the point that gambling problems disproportionately affect youth, minorities, the indigent, and individuals with mental health problems. So, Madam Speaker, based on my personal experience, that of our family, numerous gambling anonymous meetings that we have been to, people that we've worked with, The information that's on our own state website, what the state of Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services is saying about the problems that we have right now. Madam Speaker, I rise in opposition to this bill, and I urge my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.